posted to Moss Side, which is anybody from Manchester in those days in the 1990s, was known as Gunchester, and it was gangs and guns and drugs and and I thought, what on earth are they sending me here for? I am just this ordinary woman, 4 kids, and actually when I was I had to do 2 years in uniform, and I came to realize that it was actually an inspired placement for me because I was good with people and I don't judge people. My motto was always do as you would be done by. And I very quickly, I had a lot of difficulties in my probation, in my 2 year probation, with bullying and with antiquated ideas. And I felt that it was going back into the dark ages in many ways. That is another story though, Nick. And I think I've just mentioned, if anybody really wants to know more about my background and the early days of my policing career, you can get my book Survivors on Amazon. Maybe you can share the link in whatever. But I never wanted to be a uniform officer. I always wanted to be working in serious crime and actually child protection. And I did do some time in child protection, but very quickly realised that police become involved mainly with the offenders. My skills are with victims, with vulnerable people, and I went into the police to make a difference, to do good. So immediately out of my probation, my superintendent, who was very wise, he asked me to become involved in a very high profile murder, a gang job. And I did some witness protection work. I then became a family liaison officer working in serious crime, went in CID. But because of my recognised skills, in 2004, unfortunately, my husband was terminally ill. But I was asked to join an investigation looking at that case was looking at children who we knew were being abused by multiple offenders. It's now become known as child sexual exploitation or grooming gangs. And that is what I'm known for. But that was my first introduction to what is now referred to as grooming gangs. I didn't even know that this particular kind of crime existed before then because it had been hidden, covered up, if you like. There was no public debate around it. But I very quickly learned from speaking to social workers, from dealing with professionals who worked with these children, that this had been a problem for years and that the police were turning away from this kind of crime. And I couldn't understand why. One of the reasons, Nick, was because in those days, these children were, on Operation Augusta, those children were in care. And child protection units dealt with child abuse, where the perpetrator, where the abuser had care, custody or control of that child, which means like a father or an uncle or family abuse or a teacher or a scoutmaster. These children, although they were in care, they were the most vulnerable children in our society. They were being abused by technically strangers. And that fell within the remit of CID departments. CID saw these children, and actually police officers often saw these children as a nuisance. But CID definitely didn't want to become involved in this kind of investigation because they were seen as making a lifestyle choice. That these were the kids that would go missing every weekend. And the abusers would target them because they knew they were vulnerable, take them away, pretend to be a boyfriend to start with, give them a bit of fun, take them for a ride in a car, take them out for the day, buy them a pizza. Then it becomes, give them a glass of booze. Then they get trolleyed on a full bottle of vodka. Then they are trapped in a world where those men then control them and would take them out and pass them round, gangs of men. they would make money, the children would be abused on a daily basis, and nobody wanted to do anything about it. That shocked and horrified me. And within the space of a few months, the times are hard to, but from the middle of 2004, was it 2004? Might even have been the end of 2003. But we started off with a small team of 3 officers, including me, and a DI, detective inspector. Within the space of a few weeks, we had a list of about 3 dozen children that we knew were being abused. And by the end of a few months, we had a list of 100 men that we knew were abusing these children. I went to the Gold Command Group in GMP, which was made. I actually went to speak to the head of crime, an assistant chief constable, begging for more resources. We got those resources. All that information was being put onto what's called a home system. Took some months, and in that time, I had to go off work to look after my husband in his final days. When I came back to work, that job had been buried. It had died a death. Nobody had been prosecuted. Those children were left to their own devices. The abusers were left to continue doing what they were doing, because I know an abuser doesn't stop abusing. And it shocked me to my core. I tried to get answers, but I was just a DC. You know, I was told there was insufficient evidence, which I knew was not correct. I knew that was a lie, but I couldn't make any sense of it. And that was 2005. That has followed me now, Nick, for almost 20 years. And that really is where my journey in relation to child sexual abuse and my advocating for victims and fighting for justice for them began.